and then share. And we should be ready to go. I don't know if there's anybody else on the call with us. Right now I've got Jim and I have Barbara. Is there anybody else that's joined us that may be on mute at the moment? Okay. Here we go. So short and long term, what short and or long term trends do you think we need to be paying attention to? And as I put in my notes, this can either be opportunities or quite candidly, they could be risks, but they're trends either way. What, if anything, can we speak to in terms of demographic changes?
I think that New Jersey in our area, I think is pretty mature as far as demographics. I don't see anything majorly changing there.
I would say there's two things. I mean, for my industry, which is number one, we're a net loss in population state, meaning people are moving out of New Jersey at a higher rate than moving in.
Mm-hmm.
And also the trend for international population is I think that's at least like 24% of our new residents.
Are international?
Yeah, I think that's the number.
Are you thinking of permanent residents or just people that are coming over to work a few years and then eventually go back?
Well, that's difficult to quantify. I mean, we're a net loss state, like as opposed to somewhere like Florida where they're gaining residents.
Right.
I don't know if I have any tracking on how long they stay, but it's like the population numbers are declining and the new residents have a high percentage of international.
That's pretty fascinating. I hadn't thought about quite that high of a number, but it makes sense.
Yeah. You do see it in my business. You definitely see the diversity.
In addition to the net loss state, most of the net loss is really on both ends of the spectrum, right? Both college, post-college, as well as retirees, right?
I mean, there's probably some demographics I can pull. This is like kind of coming from various seminars, but I don't know about the younger. I mean, in most cases, I think people think of it as the older, the seniors that leave because of the taxes. I would think that our college is balanced out by people coming back to work in New York City and people coming from other parts of the country to take jobs in New York City as well. That's where they commute from, Hoboken or even our area.
What I'll do is I'll put a placeholder in there that basically says 20s with a question mark, because I know we're a net exporting state when it comes to college education. That's been talked about. I've sat in on multiple sessions on that one.
So is there a question that ties it back to the chamber? I mean,
well, for example, when it comes to how, if at all, do we need to pay attention to this? In other words, if we have new residents that are coming in from a foreign country, if we know that there's lots of those moving in to the suburban chamber area of Union County, how, if at all, do we need to do things differently? There may not even be a culture that people don't even know what a chamber is.
Yeah.
But I would also think that most of the people that are coming in are working for larger corporations, which we're not trying to cultivate. It's nice that if we can get some of the larger companies in the area to fork up some money to help our cause. But I think true membership is basically your small. I don't want to say mom and pops anymore, but yeah, your smaller businesses that are hyper local and are trying to build their business hyper locally.
That is true, but a few weeks ago, I forget who it was bringing up the point that going back a decade or two, that was not the case, and the big companies still sponsor the chamber and made big contributions. And we still have our banks that are not mom and pops at all, that are big members of the chamber. Now, you remember that conversation about how it used to be the fireworks were sponsored, like everything was sponsored by Celgene and bigger companies.
Yep.
Anyway, I mean, I'm just trying to tie in how it's relevant for what direction we're going, but I guess, it is valid. People are coming from different areas that might not be familiar with a Chamber of Commerce.
Yep. Anything else in terms of demographics? As we get an aging population, it's certainly some of the need for some of the services change. But I don't know whether that's going to impact us as much on the chamber level or not, to be honest with you. How about workforce values? Jim, did you have a comment that you want to make before I move on?
No, I'm good. Workforce value.
Whoops. Any comments in terms of trends in terms of workforce? One thing that I think, go ahead.
I mean, I've found that over the years, it's just so much harder to get, what do you call it, younger people that are looking to learn how to do something, and it really, kids in this area, they go to college, they get out of college and they want to step into some, big $50,000, $60,000 a year job. There's not enough, for some businesses that we can get somebody that's just a young person that wants to learn and is bright enough to be more than just a flipping burgers kind of person.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that small business struggles with, and it's for some time, is the lack of entry level kind of employees.
That kind of capture it? Jim?
Yeah.
Because I'm not
relative to the problems with being in business in the state, let's say, particularly in this area. Like I say, in this area, most of the kids are college bound, and they have much higher aspirations than just trying to earn some money for their first car or something like that.
anything else in how, if at all, do you think the quality of life plays out? That would also be
I was involved with the service organization, the Lions Club, and one of the things that that you've been finding over the years is that most of the younger people don't, and I think this is true. One of the reasons why the chambers are struggling is that people just don't get involved. They just don't have time to get involved with anything anymore. It's they're so busy at work a lot of times because bosses are expecting to do more and more. You don't have that classic going out, leaving the building for lunch. Or doing a 9 to 5. It's always you're always on the go, and then a lot of people are trying to have some sort of a collect balance. So kids are doing so many different things. They're running around. It doesn't seem like there's the traditional things that held together service organizations and the Chamber of Commerce, going back 40, 50 years, just aren't there anymore. So I think we're struggling.
Has joined.
Hello, David.
Hello. Hello.
You have Jim and Barbara and myself on the line so far.
Okay, I think I'm sitting here too.
Oh, who's that?
Yep. Joseph.
I'm sorry. Who is the last voice?
Joe Steiner.
Oh.
You may have heard of me.
Hello, Joe. Hello. David, are you in? Joe and David, are you in the document? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in it.
Okay. David, are you trying to log into the document?
Yeah, I'm in it.
Okay, there you go. Because I can see who's seeing. I just want to make sure you should see a note down about page 5 that says begin here 7:29, just to catch you up. And we're down working in the workforce values section. You should see my cursor flashing. So time to get involved with outside activities or with non-work activities becomes limited. More things demanded of employees. Not even going out to lunch as often. Okay. Anything else from a workforce values perspective? Okay. Hearing none. General.
Well, I think one of the things.
Go ahead.
One of the things to me, I don't know if this fits in here, is longevity. The days of somebody being employed and becoming a member of an organization and having a 20 or 5, 10, 20-year history with that organization are gone. People are changing their jobs every 3 or 5 years, and therefore are I used to work at XYZ, but I was in the chamber, but ABC doesn't do that. So we lose volunteers all the time.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? All right, let's swing in. General Northern New Jersey economic trends that we haven't covered as part of any demographic trends. Do we expect the economy to, over the course of the next couple of years, do we expect the economy to get better, to get worse, to remain the same?
get better. We're all going to be making more money.
It's interesting. I subscribe to something that I go in for and get information 4 times a year, and right now the trend is still for the local economies to continue to do better, even as global is expecting to slow down. It's kind of an interesting mesh of data.
Yeah, but how many times did they write it over the last 20 years? What's their track record?
Well, so far it seems like they're at least in the. These are business owners that are predominantly being surveyed, and it seems like it's close. But I got to admit, I don't have a long enough track record of watching their. This is what we thought it was going to happen versus what this is what it actually did yet. I'm too new to the survey data for that, to be honest with you. Anything else in terms of what we're expecting from Northern New Jersey economic trends?
I mean, Northern New Jersey is pretty well developed. And the industry that's here, I mean, I think any kind of manufacturing and whatnot is moving out of the area and getting less and less, and office space tends to be quite available. I don't know. I don't think that the big companies, big corporations are necessarily investing in Northern New Jersey. There's a lot of office space in Northern New Jersey, which we don't necessarily have here, because not all of it's been built. You look at the Connell plan for its property, switching from having another mega complex to adding residential. And we're facing all kinds of required housing because of the Mount Laurel court cases. Look at Springfield. I mean, look at Berkeley Heights. I mean, how many agreements did they come in for apartments? I know Long Hill's starting to feel that now too. They got a big complex somebody's proposing, and I see all the signs. One signs up saying, about fighting it. That's the whole problem. People don't want their neighborhoods to change, but unfortunately, some of this stuff has to happen. It's going to change whether they like it or not. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I would agree. And the school bubble is over. You're about to see most. Look at Hunterdon County and the number of empty school desks that they have. And you're going to start to see that up in Bergen County and other places. The bubble's gone. The only caveat here is obviously building more housing. You're going to need maybe some more services. But how many more nail salons do we need? So we never needed the number we had. The overriding question I have is, I don't know that our members know what Northern New Jersey's economic trends or New Jersey's economic trends even are. They're all looking at their own businesses to see what it is. What can I tweak here or there that will add another client or two, that will add another 5% or 10% to my bottom line this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can certainly get some. There's certainly economic data to be had from the state if we think we need to. If we need to dig deeper.
I always used UCEDC.
Right.
Always used Union County's reports through them. Always used what's his name? Jim Hughes from Rutgers has done a series of economic evaluations of Union County, and we brought him in always over the years to bring us up to date. that hasn't happened since Jim retired, which is what, 3-4 years ago.
There's also another group in addition to Rutgers. I'm drawing a blank.
I don't know. You mean the SPCs?
Well, that's probably
Yeah,
not. That's
probably development centers.
Well, it's probably that might be one to see what they have. SBDC.
I mean, and they're members of the chamber. The King University one is a member.
The real main thing is there any trends, for example, with retailing in general being on the wane. I realize that American Dream is certainly going to try to buck that in terms of, with their 60-40 split between economic or between entertainment and retail. We'll see how that all kind of plays out. That could be a huge boom in terms of in northern New Jersey overall. Whether that shakes down here to Union County or not, I wouldn't take any long-term bets on that one. Anything else from northern New Jersey that you think from an economic trends? I'm just thinking that traffic is likely to increase. Whoops.
Well, yeah, that's always a problem for some people. That's just people are just traveling further and further to get employment. Coming out of the area and coming into, or leaving the area.
Well, that makes.
Is this where you want to throw in employee benefits, where employees want more and more, and where we can possibly be the providers of some? Or do you want that somewhere else?
Well, I'm putting that up in workforce values.
Okay, I guess I wasn't following you up there.
Well, right now I'm hopping. For the most part, I've been down in the
I see you moved. I see that you moved up. Yeah.
Continue to be.
Doug, do you have any information on the trend in networking groups in general? I mean, what I'm thinking about is the population of businesses we have in our communities versus the population that's joined, and I think probably a lot of people are in other groups. So is there any trend on that? Like, are networking groups more, and are they going to be trending to be a more relevant thing or declining trend?
I don't have any data on that. I don't have any hard data on that. Just talking with people, I kind of watched a huge increase in networking event groups take place, and I think right now they're going through a pretty interesting shakeout period in terms of how many of them are really kind of shrinking and just kind of hanging on by the skin of their teeth, and others that are really seen to be vibrant are growing. It's almost like a case of the haves and have-nots. So right now I'll put impact of networking groups needs to be okay. Anything else in terms of northern New Jersey? Do you see anything else in terms of either more restaurants, less restaurants, like different types of businesses here locally?
Well, I was just thinking about the different cultural. There's so many different. Northern New Jersey more more in the city areas, but you're just having so many more foreign speaking people, immigrants and whatnot. I don't know whether they're starting to migrate, and I don't know whether it's something to address as far as trying to attract them to. If they're going to open up businesses for themselves, there's a Mexican restaurant that's going to cater more to Mexican clientele rather than make believe people that like just like tacos. I don't know whether this is a trend that we would want to consider. In other words, trying to embrace more of a multinational membership or culture. I don't know. Whether it's significant enough to consider.
But like the equivalent of an international subcommittee, or something along those lines, as a way.
As I say, there's more and more businesses, small businesses anyway, that are minority run. And do we want to try to cater to them or address that by having a member, maybe just having a member that can reach out to those and speak to them in their native tongue or whatnot to get them involved. With the Lions Club, what was happening over the years is that we've had less and less traditional business people, traditional local people. Those kind of clubs were shrinking, and the Spanish clubs were growing phenomenally because they just more getting involved with that social aspect of joining something and being part of something.
Okay. Anything else going back for Northern New Jersey? There's certainly on that what you just talked about there. I'm just going to do a cut and paste there as well. Give me 1 sec. Okay. Joe, I'm going to ask you to speak on this one a little bit. Chamber as an industry, economic trends.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you either.
I was going to ask Joe to get us started on, if you look at a Chamber of Commerce or chambers of commerce as an industry, what economic trends are chambers going through New Jersey as well as around the country?
Interesting time to talk about that. This is the week of Institute down at where all the chambers get together, an education thing, and that happens to be the strain that they're going through for a number of them as they're trying to figure the answer to that particular question out. The chambers are much more communities, their states, than they ever have been. That also seems to have been something that we have gone away from. We used to be in my job description to attend at least one city council meeting in each town every month. I don't think we've attended one in 10 years these days. If that was an issue in the chamber, well, I think it's the same. I don't want to keep this in us. I think chambers have changed their directions. We talk about the chamber as a networking group rather than a quality of life organization. It used to be that, and I think in some places still is, that it is the chamber that is considered to be one of the major reasons that a place is a good place to live, work, and play. To use the old phrase that used to be used all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I mean, I think if you look at suburban chamber today, it is primarily networking.
It sounds as though on a national level that there's a lot of regionalization taking place, particularly in and among the larger or medium-sized cities. It almost
and those chambers are humongous. I mean, I still tell the story when we sent, I've forgotten which staff member to the Institute program, and they were sitting there with somebody who was from the Philadelphia chamber, and they were being asked to tell them what size organization they were with, et cetera. They had more people on their staff than the local chamber here had as members in its division that person was responsible for. So it's just, they're different animals.
Very different.
And they're different in our area as well. You have kind of a number of different chambers in our region. And if you look at them, you'll see that there are what I call the regional groups, which are Gateway, Greater Elizabeth, Morris County, Northern New Jersey. I think Tri-County is still out there. And then you have the small, local, smaller chambers, community chambers, perhaps is the best to talk about. And they're the Springfield, the Madison, the Milburns, the Short Hills. And suburban kind of was the almost, or basically when we were 600 some odd members, we were the regional, one of those regional groups. And I think we've moved backwards now that we're, with some of the restructuring and the rechanging and everything else, that we're a little bit more towards the Madisons and the Milburns. Westfield's another one that's trying to grow and become bigger and better. And I think that's the goal, is to become bigger and better and to aspire to be more like the regional chambers of commerce. And sometimes I get the sense that we're aspiring to be Milburn and the little guys and not the big guys. And I sometimes don't understand that. And I probably said more than I should.
No, it's interesting. I was listening to somebody from a national level talk about chamber trends last year, and some of it is it really is interesting to kind of watch, kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening across the country.
So what did he say?
Well, to some degree, they're becoming, some of them, similar to your idea in terms of the small p political stuff. The involvement is huge on some of the chambers that are really growing like wildfire. They're providing more and more services with larger and larger staffs. And then you have kind of the solo executive director model, which is which is almost totally volunteer driven and focused. But it almost seems like it's reflective of kind of what's going on in the business community, where Amazon is getting huge or Walmart is getting huge, and other companies, other organizations are really getting squeezed for resources. There's a right now there's a there's a big need to educate people in terms of what a chamber even does, because it's no longer the household word that it was when I was a kid. Between I'll fix that. I'll clean that up here in a minute. Joe, to your knowledge, has there been many chambers that have gone out of business totally?
Oh, sure. I don't think there are any, and I think a number of them have gone from having staff to having no staff. I think I've forgotten which one is Chatham or Madison, or I think it's Chatham. They went that route. There are a number of them that stayed dormant for a while. They still have membership. They didn't do it, whatever it was. There are a number that stay that way, but yeah, there are chambers that have gone out of business, have merged. You don't see too many new ones showing up. Most if we think about chambers that are working with a downtown, it seems like so many downtowns are struggling with empty stores and not having as vital a retail for people to get kind of hand together to work at promotions and stuff like that.
Probably the last one that I heard of was the Gold Coast Chamber up by Liberty State Park in Jersey City. But I don't know the politics on that one, whether that was the equivalent of a splinter off of Hudson County Chamber, or whether it was just somebody who had just a whole new idea.
that is the competition of tax-funded entities, whether you call them business improvement districts or special improvement districts. What we used to do for Old Summit and New Providence, somebody said this was I heard earlier conversations about the fireworks. Those used to be run by the chamber. We used to, every retail promotion in Summit, New Providence, and Berkeley Heights in the late 80s and probably right through the 90s, if Diane Gallo and Pam Steiner weren't involved in it, it didn't happen. That's what we did. It was part of what we were about, and something that the chamber did. That doesn't, those now are being handled because they have to pay for it in their tax bill, and they do. And a lot of the other civic things have been taken over by recreation departments. In Summit, they still call it, Hot Summer Nights, the concert series, which was a takeoff from First Night. That was a Summit Downtown Chamber of Commerce project. It was done by volunteers, and it was an $80,000 fundraising list every year.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at a chamber budget that raises total. Without the magazine, what is it? About 110, 120?
Well, that's a significant drop in revenue, that's for sure. Anything else that you know of in terms of overall chamber membership? I think nationwide is probably flat or declining would be my guess.
The only thing I know to measure that against is the number of people who are attending the U.S. Chambers Institute for Organization Management program.
Okay.
It used to be that there were 6 universities that held 1 week programs, and those programs started on Sunday afternoon, and you got out Friday at 1. Today, you report on Monday, and you're home on Thursday, and there are 3 institutions doing it nationwide.
Wow.
And it only lasts 4 years, where before it used to last 6. So if there are fewer chamber professionals out there to be trained, that tells me there are fewer chambers to be sending them.
Joe, the name of that organization one more time. That wasn't USA.
It's called the Institute for Organization Management, and it is a project of the United States Chamber of Commerce.
I'll move that. Sorry. Okay. Anything else in terms of kind of what we see in terms of chambers overall? Okay. Industry, and here I'm talking about the chamber industry. A lot of software changes going on.
Well, we have a group that is looking you've seen a couple of those.
Right.
Those programs that are out there. Yeah, there's ongoing. As a matter of fact, I did a webinar last week with Karen on the next iteration of the software that we use. They're constantly changing and constantly making it easier to do things online, etc., including running some of the seminars online. So, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. There's tons of new technology.
Yeah, I would have to think that there's definitely a technology out there to help you facilitate what you're doing. It's just a matter of at what cost and how you use it. And that's what we're trying to decide or look at just to see what might best suit us. But it's out there. There's no doubt about that.
I know from listening to the guys in the Meadowlands, they were not necessarily enamored with WebLink, but it sounded like
I didn't even put them in the top 5 to show to the committee.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. They don't seem like they're particularly.
Yeah, the two that we looked at were the ones we're on right now, which is CC Assist, Chamber Master or Growth Zone, because they are finding out that their market is limited by staying just with Chambers of Commerce. So now they're marketing their program to associations because there are more of them, it's a market that they can get into. And the other one was CC Assist.
Is that the same as Chamber Assist?
No, it's Chamber Master and Growth Zone go together. And then the second one is CC capital ASSID Assist. Right, you got it. Those are the two that the committee has looked at so far, because they're comparably priced and they're kind of the same type of program. And they integrate very easily with websites that they can create and market and change relatively easily. As a matter of fact, if you go to our website right now and do a directory search, you're using one of those programs. English, you don't see it, but it's there. You register for an event with us, you're using it.
Got it. There's somebody that I can turn you guys on to that do a lot of association management software. So I can get you his contact information. I know him through the New York Society for Association Executives. And this one particular product is starting to grow across the country. So if nothing else, it would probably be at least worthwhile going, hey, let me at least take a look at it. And then we can kind of go from there. Whether you say, yeah, it's worth finding out some more information.
I think I'm speaking for Jim and Gary. I think that they probably are open to spending another afternoon looking at something. I don't think there's any problem there.
Yeah, certainly if it looks like it's affordable, obviously this stuff can run all over the place price-wise.
Yeah, that I do understand. That I do understand.
Yeah, WebLink is something like $700-800 a month. We were looking at things in the $300 a month range.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, the answer to your question is there's lots of software out there. We still use We use whatchamacallit, constant contact. We made this happen. And, we were one of the first chambers in New Jersey to go computer literate back in the 80s.
Got it.
We've always had the thing of trying to do different things and make it happen. Part of the old whatever it takes to help you guys make a profit.
Yeah.
If we could get you the information faster, we did it.
Cool. Anything else on the chamber software that I need to make a note of?
I mean, it's currently under review, so when we have something in place now, but we're looking to maybe upgrade it a little bit and get more automation as far as the billing and the programs and registration programs and stuff like that. So it's under review.
Okay. Swinging into section 4, internal appraisal. Is the suburban chamber effectively structured to best meet the needs of customers? And then how do we, what measurements do we have in place? There's really...
Customers, you also mean members? Are you calling members customers?
I am. I can basically change that to say members, sponsors, attendees. Whom else am I missing? So on this, and let me do this, and then do this. On this particular one, I'm gonna ask you to kind of think on two different levels. One is kind of the levels of the what you see up here in terms of members and sponsors and attendees, and then we can take a look at it from a board governance perspective. And as you'll see, the questions that I just pre-populated this section in probably should look at those. Is the chamber effectively structured to meet all the aspects of new member development? And then what, if any, resources do we need? Financial, this just kind of walking it down: financial, facilities, software, equipment, people, marketing, anything that could kind of fall underneath that. What resources do we actually need? But when it comes to meeting the needs of members, do we need more volunteer committees, less volunteer committees? Do we need smaller board, bigger board? Do we need more paid staff, less paid staff? But if we're trying to ultimately go back to the kind of the new vision and so on, if money was no object, would we structure ourselves the way we're currently structured?
No. You really have to have involved members. I mean, you can have any kind of structure you want, but if you don't have people that want to get involved, either in events or on committees, not a whole lot gets done, or is it necessarily worthwhile to the effort?
member orientation, because when we held the Berkeley Heights event on the date that was already saved, when Pat was doing, when the Pat had already started, Allison had a nice presentation, and that was one of the things I had said was if we do this quarterly or even monthly, host a new member orientation, get a new member involved right away into something, whether it's being involved on an upcoming event that we're planning, introduction to other members, highlight them during the First Friday event, but give them an opportunity to network with existing members as well as new members. But let them know all the things about the chamber, including the collection. Everything. She actually did a very nice PowerPoint presentation because it's really important to become involved right away. Joe knows in the very beginning when you're doing more, first got me involved with the chamber, way before I was on the board. First thing I did was throw myself into every single thing. That's very unusual for someone to be that self-motivated, want to sell their business. So when you have somebody that's new into something, at least if they feel like they're valued and they matter, and you bring them into something right away, they'll want to participate, and you won't have attrition as much with those members that feel like a sense of belonging. So I would say more committees that would handle that. And if it wasn't something that we'd be able to do, from a staffing point or in the office, which we didn't, we would do it by committee and have something planned. I mean, something that the North Jersey Chamber does, I follow Michelle all the time. She takes advantage of every single opportunity when someone new joins the chamber. She hosts a networking event at their facility. And they host it all and they do it, and that's an ongoing piece. And then they're handling all of it. But it engages that new business, or whether it's, or even if it's not a business per se, it's somebody in business, as part of the chamber right away. Get some recognition, get their name out there. So to your point, when we were discussing before about the differences in the chambers and whether or not we were trying to operate more like a Milburn and be kind of smaller and touchy-feely, or whether we were trying to look like we could be larger, we have the capacity to go either way, actually. Either join something else that's bigger and join or expand. I mean, Chatham is the face of the defunct chamber, but I think they still have a roster of members that they have. Excuse me, please text me. And I know that Madison, that's kind of like a one-man band, so to speak. It's a little bit different. So I don't want to lose, sight of where we are. But in terms of the overall structure, with being able to bring in a new member and having them feel like they matter right off the bat, become engaged right away, to your point, Jim, that's critical. That's very important. Sorry, so long.
What else is needed from a structure perspective? If you were designing the chamber today based on where it's trying to go, what does the future org chart look like?
I would like to see it, as we had spoken before, about having defined committees that handle certain sectors of chamber, whether it's event planning, whether it's governance, to Joe's point, whether it's social media, and put it down on a volunteer level on committee. That would be that's how I envision it. That's what I say.
Yeah, but you need staff to back up the volunteers. I mean,
You do.
We can't. Some people would volunteer, will do some stuff, but they still need somebody to kind of take it over, or to bring it to the next, keep it going, so to speak.
Yeah.
It can be very, very involved, ongoing. Something like maintaining Facebook page. I mean, you got to really be into that and want to constantly be there, updating and not just once or twice.
Yes.
It's ongoing.
That would have to be from a paid staff member that's all the time being done. Absolutely. And consistent. Ongoing and consistent.
What you basically have here is I'm basically going to stay out of this simply because I'm the past. I am not the future. But you are moving in many ways from a staff-driven organization, where my philosophy was I would get the board and the committees together, utilize their time to come up with the ideas of what needed to happen and what needed to be done in whatever area, and then we would run whatever programs we needed to at a price that was appropriate, that gave us enough income to hire the people to do it. And today that organization does not exist, and you need to do it a little bit differently. And how you design that is, I think, exactly what Doug is trying to get to in the next 8 lines here. It's got to be done, because it's no longer a staff-driven organization. You need to, but you need to provide it with staff resources wherever you're going to get them from, either volunteers or companies that can provide them to you or whatever. And once again, this organization needs to do what it's always done, and that is think out of the box, find something new, find something innovative, and make it work for us. And I'm done.
Well, thank you, spell check. One of the things that I've been thinking about is moving to make sure that we're really using the staff, whatever number of staff ultimately get involved. I've been encouraging people to think about it from a project manager perspective, so that they're managing multiple hands and feet and not just their own 2 hands and feet. I'm thinking on it on 2 levels. That until the organization grows significantly, there's not going to be enough budget dollars to be able to add as many people that are going to be needed, in my thought process anyway, to do that. And so if I want to try to leverage the power of staff, if they're managing multiple volunteers, almost like a project manager perspective, as opposed, so that they're really going to be truly taking on the role of a manager more than they're trying to take on the role of a doer. That to me is trying to leverage the power of volunteers and giving the volunteers something worthwhile as well. Coming up with enough worthwhile things that people want to participate. That's kind of where my guess is that this is going to ultimately be going. But I don't want to cut. I don't want to cut that off. I mean, if the future organization needs to have, 6 staff members because of this, and this, to really, to really meet the needs of the 3 towns, then this is the opportunity to kind of start drawing in the sand and saying, well, wait a minute, here's one way we could attack that. Here's another way we could attack that. That this is really the time to start kind of engaging all of our collective brains and say, what is it that do we need 5? Do we need 7? Do we need 6? What's the number? And even if we then say, okay, whether they're paid staff or whether they're considered like the equivalent of almost full-time volunteers, almost like the equivalent of somebody who would act as a docent for Liberty Science Center or something along those lines, or somebody who basically gives tours in, historical buildings. Maybe there's different ways that we can kind of look at this. If we said the equivalent of people power was not going to be an issue, what would we want the organizational structure to look like? Well, the silence from you guys is deafening. What are you thinking?
I look at it as no matter what you do, it does cost money and it costs time. And if you're trying to offer something to members, it's got to be somewhat relevant and whatnot. Having a like our award ceremony every year, we recognize different volunteers and different businesses and all that kind of stuff. It's a nice gesture to reach out to the communities and recognize these people. But bottom line, one of the reasons we were doing it too is as a way to make some money and also to give the organization some recognition. It's just harder and harder to get individuals and business people to put that much into something nowadays because they're all doing so many different things, or they're just so busy. It's hard for people to get away. It's hard for to do things after hours. Just I think at one time there was just more time available in a person's business career that they can spend with getting involved in a chamber.
Let me commit. I'm not ignoring what you just said. I'm really not. Here's a question. Let's do this, and then we can break. And I'm going to say, I'm not even going to use job titles. So while we may call this an executive director, you basically have somebody who's going to be kind of the chief administrator for the organization. What other functions? Let's not call them. Let's not think of job titles yet. What other functions do we think we would really need to be able to give us the chamber that you're trying to build?
Well, we talked about having a communications specialist, somebody that's going to be able to post stuff on Facebook or on the website, somebody that's going to always be on top of posting stuff. You need a person that's going to obviously you need somebody that's going to be financially responsible to take care of and happen in a very routine, orderly fashion, I think would be very important.
Almost like an administrative assistant.
Well, you need either one person to take or wear these different hats, or you need to have a person available to, let's say, be the communications director. Take care of all communications going out to members, or posting, stuff on Facebook, posting stuff on the website, keeping everything fresh and current. So somebody has to be somewhat responsible for that, whether it be a volunteer, whether it be a staff member. It's not something that, I don't know, is a part-time person. Part-time person, would that be maybe interested in just doing that aspect of what we need done? But somebody that's going to be, like I said, the communications specialist, make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that might be a program organizer that's able to get different kinds of programs, get speakers, or get things organized in the sense, find a place to, which is
you need
part staff responsibility, but also, assigning it to a volunteer or a member, whether it be a board member or something like that.
Well, to go a little bit granular with that, have one person be the umbrella to that, but to have different sectors and segments, so we'd be able to appeal to segments.
Were you talking about people, or are you talking about functions?
I'm talking about functions.
Yeah, well, okay. So you're not talking about people. So what you're talking about is you need an event planner. You're talking about you need an administrative, a person to handle registrations at events, or maybe that's part of event planning. I don't know. You need someone to deal with membership, with selling membership. You need someone to come up with you need someone who's going to monitor the chamber. Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? To make sure that when you develop this, what in chamber language is called the program of work, that actually you're doing that, and that you're not getting sidetracked to something else. You need a spokesman for the chamber. The function is a spokesperson, a public relations person to get the right message out to the community. You need a board coordinator, someone who's going to call the board together at the appropriate times when that could be. I'm not saying who it's going to be. You're talking about functions. Someone to call the committees together. Because even though it should be maybe the chairman of the committee, sometimes they get busy running their own business. Somebody has to be looking out for the chamber to make sure that the committee that was established actually does what it's supposed to do. I'm sure there are other functions that all need to be done, that's a piece of this.
Thanks. This is, believe it or not, this to me is helpful, because to me, once we start to take a look at, what the roles are or what the functions are, then we can start to take a look at, we know that none of these that we've got on this list here, we know that none of them happen in autopilot. It all happens because somebody has to make it happen. And that can be multiple somebodies. It can be, chances are it's not going to be a single somebody. But to me, if we start to think about, and maybe this is a good time to break, but I'd like us to be able to come back and say, let's take a look at these. And what else do we miss? Joe, this will give you a chance while you're recuperating to think about other specialties that seriously, if you said, look, I'm giving you guys a $3 million grant. Just go out and just go out and build the frickin' structure that you need. You know, what are those things that you where would you want to invest that money? You know,
every chamber of commerce executive I know would say, let's get rid of all the volunteers and we'll get it done.
well, even
We know what has to be done. It's dragging you all along with it.
well, I understand that, but Joe, even that still doesn't answer the question: what functions need to be done? The beauty of this question, the way I've asked the beauty of this question, the way I've asked it on purpose, is it separates the who from the what. I'm interested in the what needs to be done. Then you and I can arm wrestle about the who, but we got to agree on the what's first. Is this a good time to break?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say thank you for sharing some time. It feels like we made some headway. We'll have to get some new dates on the calendar to move forward. But thank you so much. It's what?
If you can send them in an email, if you can send the dates in an email, that'd be perfect.
Okie dokie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks.
Bye, Joe.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.